You'll tell me when.
You're on. It started already. You're not like on. I'm just like, it's on, but you know.
You guys tell me when.
It's done.
Yeah, and then I'll introduce you. You've been doing amazing. Amazing.
I have to stick around.
I'm not biased.
Swatch to switch out.
Oh, they're doing it. Okay, you're gonna be live too.
We're on. It's live. It's live. It's live. It's probably best to speak louder, you know?
Tell me when.
Whenever. Are we good? Jordana? It's on Jordana.
We're good? Are we on? Hi, everyone. Everyone's tuning in virtually here. We've got some people here with us live. Is everyone seeing me, hearing me? We're all good to go?
See, it's not the volume.
We're good, Jordana?
See, the volume.
That volume
That.
is gonna have to go to this one.
Just figuring out the volume issues here, guys. Want me to use the mic? Hello. Hi, everyone. We're just figuring out our audio issues, and then we're going to get started. So all of those who are tuning into Zoom, just stay with us for a few minutes as we figure this all out. We're trying to do this live here down in Toronto, but we're also trying to bring this to you virtually for all those people who, because of these extraordinary circumstances, couldn't be here with us today. Although I'm sure after all the years of Jordana working on this, she really wishes that people could be here, but we're still making it happen. That's what we're doing. We're still making everything happen. Audio's good? Okay, everyone, I want to start the show because we have a lot to get through in the next hour, and it's such an honor for me to be here with all of you today to launch Shadow Light's cattle car, stepping in and out of the darkness. I'm going to be taking you on a tour of this remarkable exhibit, and I'm going to be introducing you to our guest speakers for this afternoon. For those who don't know me, my name is Naomi Parnas. Some of you may know me from CTV News. I was a reporter there. I was a journalist for 20 years and now own my own communications and production company, KPW Communications. But I'm also the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. My incredible grandparents, Avi and Chava Sloma, are still alive. My grandfather is 102. My grandmother just turned 95. They will be married 74 years in November. And they are extraordinary people, as are all Holocaust survivors. And after going on the March of the Living myself many years ago, I decided to dedicate a large portion of my life to Holocaust education. I sat on the Holocaust Education Committee for years, and it's a true honor for me to be here today because with everything that's going on in the world right now, and the hatred and the rise in hatred, and the fact that a lot of these Holocaust survivors won't be with us for much longer, it is so crucial and important to continue and pledge to tell the stories of the Holocaust. So I'm really, really honored to be here today with all of you. It's one of the reasons that the cattle car exhibit is so important. It's an opportunity to step into the past, to be moved and enlightened by the stories, and to commit to doing something positive for the future. We're here right now at the Toronto Railway Museum. It's located in Roundhouse Park in the midst of downtown Toronto. We're surrounded by historical trains that have been a venue for educational programs and publications to broaden people's understanding and appreciation of Toronto's rich railway heritage, that has offered a means of transportation for millions of Canadians across the country, and a means of uniting people and communities. But during the Second World War, we all know trains were not necessarily used for such a positive and noble purpose. In Eastern Europe in the 1930s and 40s, trains were a large part of what enabled the Holocaust to happen. At first, trains were used to concentrate Jewish populations in the ghettos and to transport them to forced labor in concentration camps. But eventually, trains were used to transport people to death camps, an elaborate and efficient transport system that enabled the murder of millions. Trains similar to this cattle car, replica cattle car that we have here with us today. Holocaust historian Michael Berenbaum has noted that there were 44 parallel railroad tracks leading to Auschwitz. 44. This was an example of transportation used in the worst possible way. Before we talk more about the cattle car, I want to chat with Kelly Burwash. I'm going to find Kelly over here from the Toronto Railway Museum. Kelly, such a pleasure to be here today with you to launch this important exhibit here. Can you talk about why it's important to have the cattle car here amidst everything else?
Well, I think because we have trains here, we have different cars, but it's important to tell the stories, not only the positive stories of railway history, but also the not positive stories. It's all true, and it's all stories we need to share.
How many people usually come here, and how many people do you expect to be part of this?
We usually have, I would say, 200 people a day. Obviously, in COVID, it's a little bit quieter, but we're really hoping we can share this story with as many people as safely possible.
Have you been inside yourself?
Yes, I have, and I found it a very impactful story, especially because we have a boxcar in our collection that was used for goods. It's very important to realize that this was not what these cars were made for, and the inhumane treatment that they suffered inside the car.
For so many young people, they don't even know very much about the railroad and everything in terms of railway travel and how things were brought. I mean, what do you want them to get out of the experience of coming into this cattle car?
I think the personalized stories that these were real people, they're still with us today, and that we need to know that this really happened, and it's important that this never happens again.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for hosting this and for being with us today.
Thank you.
Today, we're here to tap into the stories of a freight car, a train that wasn't even meant to carry people, but rather cattle. If the walls of this cattle car could speak, what would they say? What would they teach us? This cattle car is an opportunity to listen to those voices and to learn from them. We're here today to expand the realm of Holocaust education through new capabilities and immersive experiences like this one. Experiences that will empower students, memorialize the past, and move forward into a brighter future together. I invite you to step inside this exhibit along with me and experience the incredible impact of Shadow Lights cattle car. Please watch this video that documents the journey of this coming here today.
If we're going to have a hope of understanding and of a meaningful future, we have to start with the children. And we can educate them not to hate, not to discriminate. Then we have a chance.
If we can educate the young, then hopefully there will be a different world made by those young people.
In high school, I visited the concentration camps in Poland, and I felt like this wasn't the end of the story.
It's Holocaust Education Week. Students at the University of Guelph wanted to take lessons beyond the textbook and bring something to campus that is large as life.
A startling sight at the university, a replica cattle car similar to the one used to transport Jews and others to concentration camps during World War II is now parked at the university.
I brought this replica cattle car to my university campus and designed an interactive and immersive exhibit inside.
Since Wednesday, as many as 2,000 people have come to see the exhibit.
When I heard Jordana speaking, I was totally blown away. At that time, I think she was 20, 21 years old, and she had started at age 16.
We became the first people on the advisory committee with Jordana. We were donors to the project. The beta testing at Guelph indicated to us how much of a need there is for this education.
Initially the plan was a lot simpler. We said, okay, we'll just make one video that we project on one of the walls, but as we were brainstorming and as things developed, we said, hey, what if we projected video on all of the walls? You know, what if we created this fully seamless 360-degree experience that will really resonate with people and leave them something that they can take home.
We did some work just with the school boards. I had her come and meet all the history heads in York Region. It was nice to see the response from everybody else of, yes, this is something we would absolutely want.
I think we need something new in terms of how do we educate the next generations.
Our young people are just constantly bombarded with images, and this is going a step beyond just giving them images.
We had actors and we had green screens, we had a big studio set up so we could properly capture what we needed to project into a 360-degree space.
We have to remind people of what can happen in the world when good people do nothing, to see it, to experience it, to try and imagine what it was like being there for 3 days and 3 nights.
I think there's a lot of different kinds of learners, and especially for a student who might be bored of reading things in a textbook, they need a different kind of education, and this is information that you are a part of.
To hear the account of people who were there and see them right in front of you, where you're actually looking at the story manifest right before your eyes in the place where it took place, I think it's just really powerful.
They will really absorb the information and it will stick with them, and they will use it. It will shape who they are.
With what Jordana and her crew have been able to create, when you march through that cattle car and you come out the other end, you are a changed person.
We went out and had a look at it after the meeting. It needed to be completely refurbished and to be prepared for the education tour to all the schools.
We put a brand new trailer under this cattle car, like 17,000 pounds trailer that can carry almost anything, and fix the roof and fix inside. You can pull with a normal pickup truck, you can go anywhere.
As you can imagine, as the years have gone by, it is harder and harder to take kids on field trips. And teachers are so excited about this idea where we can bring this knowledge, this experience, this field trip to them. And there won't be all those extra costs sort of surrounding of getting the kids somewhere. We actually are going to bring the field trip to the students. So I think that is just a brilliant idea.
The Holocaust is fading from recent memory as the years go on, and unfortunately the Holocaust survivors and the people who witnessed the atrocities are diminishing in number.
You guys, young, you have to continue with this, that, you know, stand for yourself. It's your life, it's your children's life that will never happen again.
Our goal is not merely to teach, not merely to commemorate. Our goal is to empower. Our goal is to transform. And every single student that we encounter, that they too can make a difference in the lives of thousands.
We can't let Holocaust education fall behind. We have to continue innovating in order to inspire, because this education must continue.
We're good? We back? It is my pleasure now to introduce Mayor John Tory. Mayor Tory has devoted himself to public service for decades, a true advocate for the city and this province. Hold on one second. It's okay. We're making it happen, people. Hold on one second. You good? Okay. I was saying that Mayor Tory has devoted himself to public service for decades, a true advocate for this city and this province. I want to know how important and inspiring his calm leadership has been during this difficult time as we all try to maneuver through the COVID crisis. It's also important to add that he is a longtime supporter of Holocaust education and an advocate and champion of the Cattle Car Project. Please join me in welcoming Mayor John Tory.
Well, Naomi, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, I should tell you, by the way, that you get many, many privileges in this job. And I consider the whole job to be a privilege, even on the worst days. But one that I had that is etched in my mind is going to Naomi's grandparents' 70th wedding anniversary to present them personally with a scroll, because, and I didn't know it was her grandparents at the time. I just said, well, they said to me when I signed the scroll, and I said, anybody that's been married for 70 years, I want to show up personally to give it to them. And it turns out it was Naomi's grandparents, and I showed up at the house, and they're having a wonderful ceremony there, or a wonderful just gathering. And they did tell me, I should note, that they hadn't in those 70 years had a word of disagreement between each other. And I found that on the one hand, hard to believe, and on the other hand, when I met them, easy to accept. And they don't listen. She says they can't hear, they don't listen to each other. Well, that probably helps. But, you know, these are the privileges you have, as it is a privilege for me to be here today. And I should just tell you that I have a long history of involvement, and it's kind of one of those things where your life goes along and you have different intersection points with different kinds of issues and things that happen in society and in a community. And when I was a young lawyer, well, first of all, I was born into a family that if you look at it under Jewish law, I'm Jewish because it came down through my mother's side of the family, and I'm very proud of that. And so I have many Jewish relatives, although I wasn't raised in the Jewish faith. And then as I came along to be a young lawyer, one of the clients I ended up doing some work for very early on when I was maybe a first year, second year lawyer was the Canadian Holocaust Remembrance Association. And I just can remember the determination of the people who spearheaded that group. Sabina Citron, I remember her name very well because she was my client. And they were people possessed of a passion to make sure that they were involved in taking legal action from time to time, but they were also just involved in making sure there was awareness and education about the Holocaust. And that was back some time ago. So it was still an even fresher kind of historical memory than would be the case today. And then probably for 15 years until they moved it. And then I kept going there, but I went to Earl Bales Park in April every year. And I remember it was always a cool evening in a tent in Earl Bales Park, and hundreds of people were there. But the only people that really mattered who were there every single year in and year out, they were able to have a survivor come and speak. And of course, as we all know, there's nothing like hearing a survivor, somebody who's a witness to history, whose lived experience had involved being through that terrible nightmare, that made it something that was etched in your mind every time you heard one of them speak year after year. And I still go to the ceremonies that I don't think were held this year, as I recall, because of COVID-19, but are held now up in Thornhill. And then both times that I've been to Israel, I have visited, of course, Yad Vashem, and I went back a second time because the experience of it is something that's just overwhelming, and I'm not sure, having seen it the first time, that you shouldn't go back 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 10 times just because you need to understand everything that's there. And I'll tell you why all of that is so relevant to the job that I hold today. And that is because if you look at, there are many, many issues you face in trying to lead a big city, but none are more profound than the need to take the city that is the world's most diverse city and try to bring it together. And you have here, by design and by welcome and by embrace, people from every different faith, every different nationality, every different skin color, sexual orientation. We are the most diverse city in the world, but that presents some very special challenges that I take most seriously in my job. And so there are incidents happening today. I was at a mosque on Friday, and you may have seen in the news that there at that mosque, there were words of hate written on the side of the mosque. There were nooses left at construction sites not too long ago that are the most powerful and searing and awful sign of discrimination and hate towards our Black fellow citizens. And of course, there continue to be, I say this with deep regret, high on the list of hate crimes that are reported in the city of Toronto each year, many acts of anti-Semitism that continue to happen all this time later. And I found, as a student of history myself, that's what I studied all those many years ago when I was a student, that we didn't learn very much actually about the residential schools, for example, and what that represented in terms of the feelings and the experiences today of generations later of young people who continue to live that experience of their grandparents who were taken off to residential school right here in this province, in this country. We weren't around for the days when people trying to escape the Holocaust were rejected by this country that's so proud today, and rightly so, at the fact we take people who are seeking refuge from all over the world. I was just growing up in the days of segregation that was still a reality in the South of the United States. And acts of racism were still actually quite prevalent here, as they still are today, if we want to be honest about it. And slavery, which was seems like an ancient memory, left its impression on people who are today generations later after those who actually experienced that. And so to me, aside from the experience of meeting Georgiana herself, and she's so filled with energy and filled with passion and commitment about this, it's an incredible story. And backed by the support of people like the Teppermans, who've been so good to get behind this kind of thing, because every enterprising young or older person needs people to back them up and say, I'll get behind you in this project. This is so important because it becomes harder and harder to have the survivors tell their firsthand tale. And soon it will be impossible. But you have this. that is going to, I think, provide that education. It's not possible for everybody to go to Yad Vashem, as I was privileged to do. It's not possible for everybody to attend a Holocaust Education Week event, which I still do every year, because every one of the people who give a lecture have something to tell you, not just about the experience of the Holocaust and not just about some of the horrific experiences that our Jewish ancestors and predecessors have gone through, but about making sure that we educate ourselves about hate and how we have to stand up the minute we see it, and speak up the minute we see it, and show up the minute we see it. I went to the mosque and I said to them on Friday that it was not just important for me to stand up and make a statement, which I did the day that happened, but it was important for me to show up and stand there and say that as the mayor, I am your ally, I'm your friend, I'm your supporter. I'm going to be beside you and behind you as a community, because we cannot let these acts of hatred penetrate this wonderful place where we haven't got it perfect, but I think we have it we get it as much as anybody else in the world does. And so that's why this is so important and why I was so anxious. I told Jordana I changed my schedule around to make absolutely sure I could be here today, because it is important in and of itself, but it's also important as to what it represents for the city we're trying to build here, which we'd like to think, and I think we can, build something that is different. And the division and the polarization that leads to these kinds of things that we see happening all around us in the world, we've got to stop from happening here. So Jordana, and she'd be the first to say team, and I saw it on the program, all the people who were listed as supporters of different kinds. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for the contribution it's going to make beyond Holocaust education. It's going to make a huge contribution to having us understand each other better and understand what leads to the kind of hate that is such a disaster for the world when it happens anywhere, anytime. And I'm just proud of the fact that we can continue to do things like this in Canada and in Toronto, because I think it's going to help to make us a better place. So I'm just very pleased to be here for all of those reasons, and I'm sorry to have gone on for so long, but I feel very strongly about this, and I know you do too from the fact you're here. So thank you very much to everybody associated with this.
Don't be sorry for going on for so long about something like this. This is something we should be talking about for hours. And I think it's also really important what you said, and that's one of the biggest lessons I've gotten from my grandparents who, you know, I said my grandfather's 102. He still wakes up every morning. He can see his mother. He can visualize her. He still sees her. He knows exactly what she looks like. But the one thing that they will tell me as Holocaust survivors is it's not necessarily, it is about the lessons of what happened, but it's about learning tolerance and love and not to hate. And my grandparents always instilled that in me, and now in their great-grandchildren, my own children. And this is a first step, obviously, in trying to do that for the next generation, because my kids know my grandparents, but I don't know how well they'll remember them. And once they're gone, it'll be their job to carry on their stories. So thank you for that and for saying that. You mentioned the Teppermans. Kitty Tepperman, as you mentioned, along with her husband Paul, have been involved in this project since the very beginning. Jordana would say they are her cheerleaders, advisors, and mentors. They've supported her through the ups and downs of creating Shadowlight and the cattle car experience. And in a project of this magnitude, there have certainly been ups and downs. But through it all, they have never let Jordana give up, and they have never stopped believing in her and her goals. Please welcome Kitty Tepperman.
I am the only child of Holocaust survivors. I was born in Antwerp, Belgium. My parents are now sadly deceased. My mother, Esther Zwick, and my father, Joseph Peretz, lost everyone, their siblings, parents, grandparents, and 37 family members to the chimneys of Auschwitz. The horrors of the Holocaust shaped my life. It is very important that the memory of the 6 million and the tragedies that occurred during the Holocaust never be forgotten. 40% of North American millennials do not know anything about the Holocaust. 60% have never heard of Auschwitz. There is a great need for immersive interaction education. Jordana Leibowitz is a dreamer, in good company with the likes of Malala and Greta Thunberg, young visionaries with passion. My husband Paul and I met Jordana 2.5 years ago at a March of the Living alumni meeting. When she began to talk about her commitment to Holocaust education and remembrance, we were very impressed. The chemistry was immediate. In the living room of our home, a tiny seed was planted. It germinated, sprouted, and blossomed into the Cattle Car project here today. It took tireless work and effort. I pray that my family is reunited in heaven and looking down at us today with gratitude that Holocaust education for future generations will continue, and that we all affirm never again.
Thank you so much, Kitty. It is now my honor to introduce Holocaust survivor Hedy Baum. In 1944, Hedy and her family were among the more than 425,000 Hungarian Jews who were deported to the Auschwitz death camp during what became known as Operation Hungry. 300,000 of these Jews, including Hedy's family members, were murdered in the gas chambers. Hedy was among the few survivors. Jordana met Hedy when she was 16, and she was her survivor chaperone on March of the Living. In 2015, when the Cattle Car project was in the early stages of development, Jordana brought Hedy to her university in Guelph, where more than 1,500 students came out to hear her speak. As I know from hearing Hedy speak to students, she's always an inspiration and always has everyone listening. Hedy is one of the featured survivors in the Cattle Car exhibit. She helps bring it to life as she describes her own personal experiences being in the cattle car with her family on the way to the death camps. She is one of Toronto's most well-known Holocaust survivors and does a lot of work educating students about the danger of hate. It's my pleasure to welcome Hedy Baum.
Thank you very much. It is an honor and a duty for us Holocaust survivors to be here and to speak for as well and as long as we are able to. Almost everything that can be said that is relevant about the Holocaust has been said by one or the other of the previous speakers. Yes, everything is important. And this cattle car, where I began my trip to a destination at the time unknown, and which turned out to be the place where I saw my parents for the last time. It's here again to represent, hopefully for the future generations, the horrors that human hate and discrimination can do to another human being. I'm not going to talk about the Holocaust. It's been said, and it's being said over and over again. All I'm going to reiterate is that what I've heard before, we have to learn and teach not to hate. We have to learn and teach to love one another, accept one another, faulty as we are with our weaknesses, and encourage who we can to be the best they can be, to be braver than they ever thought they could be, because it is within us. We just have to believe in ourselves. And my hope, whenever I speak to young people, is to imbue this power in them, to make them feel that they are able to make a change, that they are bright enough, smart enough to do what needs to be done, to be brave. When it would be easy to be quiet and slink away, to stand up and challenge, to improve whatever way, small or large, they can this world, beginning with themselves, with their families and friends, their schoolmates, their neighbors. And if everyone will be doing this, we could make a world that will embrace and love instead of hate. And that is my hope and wish for the future.
It now gives me great pleasure to introduce Jordana Leibowitz, who everyone has heard a little bit about already today. She is the mastermind and inspiration behind the Cattle Car exhibit and the Shadowlight organization. I've actually only known her for a very short time, but it's clear to see her passion for this project. She's compassionate, enthusiastic, and curious, and it is amazing to see what she has accomplished here. This exhibit was years of planning, developing, organizing, designing, not to mention fundraising to get to this point. With so many aging survivors passing away, we need more young people like Jordana who will carry on their important stories. Please welcome Jordana Leibowitz.
As I stand here today on a 90-year-old roundhouse at the Toronto Railway Museum, surrounded by the hum of trains and history, one theme is most prominent in my mind: movement. The movement of people, of possibility, of vision, time, and generations. The movement of history and of education aimed at building the future that we are all moving towards. At the age of 16, I remember walking under the gates of Auschwitz like it was yesterday. Below the infamous sign ran the railroad tracks that brought 1.1 million souls to their deaths at this one site alone, including both of Hetty's parents. And there, as I walked these tracks, I stared at the cattle car poised in place, the space that held the last moments of sisters and brothers, mothers and children, husbands and wives. I saw them in my mind's eye, the children, the babies, my very own cherished heroes, Hetty and Nate, who you have already met as teenagers. The impact of that experience has changed me forever. I grasped for the first time my responsibility to share their messages with my generation. I saw so clearly the power that every single person has to shape the future. That was 7 years ago, and the survivors were already aging. I remember survivors on my trip pulling out portable stools to sit on as we trudged through the emotional sites for hours on end. Since then, many of my friends have passed. I have watched the world of Holocaust education and surrounding society shift, evolve, and change. Hatred and discrimination are on the rise throughout the world. In the face of the Pittsburgh and Poway massacres, the countless terror attacks and hate crimes and civil unrest that has surged around us, even in the last few months. Holocaust education in this time, highlighting the consequences of intolerance and learning the lessons from history, is needed now more than ever. This world demands different strategies than it once did. I look around at my friends, my peers, a lot of which are here today, and I speak their language. We need to be engaged. We seek personalized involvement, technological development, relevant connections, emotional attachment, and active learning. We learn through experiences. We are motivated through immersion. We take action through empowerment. Holocaust education holds the key to legacy, to never forgetting where we came from, but it also can shed light on a pathway for the future and a light on ourselves and our responsibility to create that future. The next generation of young people needs the next generation of Holocaust education. Today, after 3 years of hard work, of never giving up, of pursuing pure, unmitigated vision on behalf of my team, young leaders, students, advisors, and donors in every field, today we are thrilled to expand the availability of transformative experiences to broader demographics, to students on university and high school campuses, from each and every background, faith, and community. With this powerful learning tool, we will shape perspectives, hearts, and purpose. We would never attempt to replicate the devastating experiences the survivors encountered in a space similar to this. Students will not be stepping into the past. No, they will be stepping into the present. They will be stepping into their own experience, one of direct connection to those that were there, of thinking critically, of the warning signs that lead to genocide, of the consequences of hatred. With this one-of-a-kind, powerful educational tool, students will confront themselves, be moved to mobilize, see exactly how this history relates to their lives, and be given the tools to construct that knowledge and motivation into the very building blocks of what will become all of our futures, a better future. I once asked Hedy Bohm, who you just heard from, and she's also featured in our exhibit, why she returns to Auschwitz, the place that stole her family and her youth. How difficult it must be for her after the trauma she experienced. With her forehead to mine, she said softly, "I do this for you, so you will learn." At that moment, I made a silent vow that I would make her sacrifice well worth it. At the time, I did not even grasp the power that I possessed, nor the path that I was embarking on. Throughout this tumultuous process of ups and downs, massive achievements and disappointing letdowns, endless work fueled by sheer willpower alone, facing doubts and opposition in myself and beyond, and then COVID to top it off, I have realized that we rarely know what lays ahead. If we wait to have all the answers before we set out, we never will. What one does need is a team of deep-rooted support and a willingness to try and grow and learn, and a clear vision of why. Why are you doing this? That will get you through. Probably about a year ago, I was overcome with doubts, unsure if I could fundraise the money that I needed to make this dream a reality, and uncertain of my abilities, and in a fit of passion, I jotted down this note in large letters, which I hung to my bedroom door. It said, "I'm doing this for the survivors, for Bill, Hedy, Nate, and Max. I'm doing this for all that were lost and all who remain mourning them. I'm doing this because I believe that this project is unique, impactful, and inspiring. I believe that it needs to be given a shot to stand on its own. Remember when I stood in the gas chambers at Auschwitz? Remember what Hedy said and what I understood when I heard them testify. That's why I'm doing this. Never forget, never again." I read that note every single morning. This is why and for whom I'm doing this. And standing here now, I only hope that I made my heroes proud. Our goal is not merely to teach, not merely to commemorate, no. Those are important ideals and we are committed to them. But really our goal is to empower. Our goal is to transform. That is why this journey is so powerful, because bringing this 360 high-tech projected exhibit inside of a full-size cattle car that my team of young professionals and students created single-handedly shows the world and every single student that we encounter, and there will be tens of thousands, that they too can accomplish the unimaginable, that they too can move heaven and earth, recruit top educators and prominent members of society, people at the top of their fields, to stand with them in achieving their own goals. That the mayor himself of a huge multicultural city just may come out to speak at the launch of their very own initiative. That they too can make a difference in the lives of thousands, and that they themselves have the power to make this world a better place. The Cattle Car exhibit is a movement. Shadowlight is a movement of like-minded individuals committed and speeding towards a future not yet determined, driven by the words of those who know. And a movement of every single student that may or may not have realized their leadership potential as of yet. This is what the Cattle Car Stepping In and Out of Darkness teaches, that we can all be leaders. All we need is vision and support. Hetty and Nate and Andy and Saul and Judy and every single Holocaust survivor, they provide the vision. They know what a world of destruction looks like. It tore their families from their hands, their mothers and fathers. It made them slaves, subhuman, orphans. They have witnessed the consequences of hatred, but the story doesn't end in the gas chambers nor in the cattle car. This is just a symbol of a journey, a connection to their suffering. We continue their stories. And we have proven today and every day that we have been solving problems and never giving up, that we are taking the torch forward. We will spread light amidst the darkness. We will build a better world. Today, we are introducing an immersive experience into the discourse of Holocaust education. We are introducing the newest tool towards mobilizing the next generation to fight hatred, pursue social justice, and make a difference. Just as trains bring people from place to place, we are bringing Holocaust education to the future leaders of tomorrow in a way that will move and motivate them, in a way that they will never forget. And more than anything, we are giving them the tools to apply their own passions and succeed in bringing even a little more light into this world. By creating authentic experiences for students who will be the future of tomorrow, we are speaking to them in their own language and instilling our faith in them. Never again. Never again will there be a generation that will forget the Holocaust. Never again will we stand by and allow hatred to circulate unquestioned. I would like to thank everyone for being a part of this movement. My team of passionate young leaders who astound me every day with their drive and expertise. I assure you the future is in good hands. To my advisors in every field who set aside time in their busy schedules to offer guidance on subjects that they know inside and out. To the donors, the visionaries without whom we would not be standing here today, and especially those listed on the cattle car itself, Carrie Green, the Abraham and Esther Hirsch Foundation, the Gans Family Foundation, Kitty and Paul Tepperman, Arnie and Petty Cater, the Alexander E. Grossman Foundation, the Canadian Forum of Russian-Speaking Jewry, and Greg Nissan. Thank you to the Toronto Railway Museum for hosting us, and Mayor John Tory for coming out to support us. It is always my dream to have you here. Thank you, Naomi Parnas, for hosting this whole event. Thank you for everything you do, John Tory, for making this city a model of cohesive multiculturalism and respect for diversity. A city that does not uphold the rights of some while others are silenced through hatred and intolerance. A city that does not stand for discrimination of any kind. Finally, thank you to the survivors, beacons of light shining in our world, and thank you to all our supporters. You are here today. You here today are the first witnesses to our final product, of which we are so proud. And as we move forward, I invite each and every one of you watching today to join this movement and help us evolve as we spread the light. This is just the beginning. We will be pursuing community partnerships, traveling to over 50 schools, school campuses, and university campuses throughout the province, initiating trainings, leadership opportunities, and innovative curriculum, all peer-to-peer. We will be visiting community institutions and organizations far and wide. We will continue to evolve and address the needs of our generation. We are still fundraising, and we need your support to make this all possible. We said we would build a one-of-a-kind traveling exhibit inside of a cattle car, and here it is. Now help us impact tens of thousands. Help us take this powerful educational tool to places that need it most. This has always been a community initiative, and we cannot do it without our beloved community. Finally, bring this exhibit to your organizations, schools, and institutions. You can be a part of this movement, and we can change the world together. Standing here today, I feel awestruck and elated with a sense of achievement, a sense of appreciation, and most of all, a sense of possibility. We see the future on the horizon, and we will never stop moving towards it. Thank you.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Bob Rae, a Canadian diplomat, lawyer, negotiator, public speaker, and former politician at both the federal and provincial level. His credentials and background are incredibly impressive, and his achievements are too lengthy to list here. He's currently the permanent representative to Canada at the United Nations in New York. Bob is a longtime supporter of Holocaust education and speaks often about anti-Semitism and other instances of discrimination and injustice throughout the world. He and his wife, Arlene Perley Ray, have supported this project since its inception. Please welcome Bob Ray to the screen.
Hello, everyone. I'm very honored by this invitation and with the opportunity to join all of you today. I want to start by congratulating Jordana and her Shadowlight team for their incredible leadership and dedication. This powerful exhibit on the Holocaust will educate thousands about hatred and its terrible consequences. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I'm with you virtually. Hatred and brutal attacks on Jews as a people, as a nation, and as individual men, women, and children, it did not start or end with the genocide of the Holocaust. Unfortunately and tragically, anti-Semitism is as old as the history of the Jewish people. In ancient times, opposition came from local tribes, the empires of Persia, Greece, and Rome. The destruction of both the first and second temples turned the Jews literally into a people without a home, a people forced to live under the power of others, and a people forced to move, hoping to find security somewhere, anywhere, in places where the hearts and minds of the majority were so often turned against them. The determination of Jews to stay true to their faith and true to their history made their stay in many places unwelcome, difficult, and sometimes even impossible. Because they were branded as a people apart, Jews lived with the constant reality of hatred and discrimination and the threat of destruction and the threat of violence. In this history, long periods of peaceful coexistence and even prosperity, for example, the remarkable years in Spain where Christians, Muslims, and Jews lived in a dignity that was celebrated at the time by Maimonides, came to a tragic and violent end with expulsions, forced conversions, death, and the destruction on a grand scale, and a return to the life of the wandering Jew. For hundreds of years, much of Europe, Spain, England, France, Germany, and well beyond, Jews were banished. They were forbidden to live, to worship, and to be themselves. Holocaust denial today is illegal in some countries, but until a few days ago, it was not illegal on Facebook. Hatred and lies can take on a new life at the touch of a button and are now more widespread and really, tragically, are more believed than ever. In her great book, The Origins of Totalitarianism, Hannah Arendt has described how folk racism became so-called scientific racism, and how in the 19th century ideas of racial purity and superiority took hold in many, many different societies, but most dramatically and with such terrible effect in Germany. It took a populist demonic figure like Hitler to take crazy ideas into the street, and in the Nazi movement put anti-Semitism at the heart of his own and at the heart of his country's politics. The Jewish people and the whole world paid the ultimate price as a result. The world after 1945 vowed never again, but this has proved untrue, both for the Jewish people and for many others whose lives have been threatened and even destroyed by the awful power of race hatred. The mass killing of the Tutsis in Rwanda, the forcible deportation and killings of the Rohingya in Myanmar are just two notable examples. Genocide is not, tragically, a thing of the past. It is a pathology of our current history, which makes this exhibit so important. For the Jewish people, not even the loss of 6 million in the Holocaust has brought an end to insecurity and to discrimination. The creation of the State of Israel in 1948 has not been followed by peace and by mutual acceptance, and Israel's struggle for the right to live in secure and recognized borders at peace with Palestinians and other neighbors is still being challenged to this day. Anti-Semitism includes the views of those who cannot and will not accept the existence of the State of Israel. Israelis and Palestinians, Jews, Muslims, and Christians are all in the Middle East to stay, and they must all be able to live in security and with full respect for their civil rights. Incitements to race hatred, denial of the legitimacy of the other, talk of driving people into the sea, these are all examples of modern hatreds that cannot go unchallenged. So too, our own work in Canada has to continue. All of us know that anti-Semitism has been with us in our own country for a very long time, and it is still with us today. It's true there are fewer places of exclusion, and there is more opportunity for shared respect and for celebration. We have emerged from the days of none is too many. But incidents of anti-Semitism are still listed as the most common among hate crimes, and these crimes reflect the resurgence of ancient hatreds and stereotypes, as well as new ones, and fighting them will require education, persistence, and an even greater commitment, both from ourselves and from others, that laws will in fact be enforced and people will be protected. Anti-Semitism is based on lies, and it is not based on facts. People are free to have their own opinions, but if those opinions are based on lies and hate and not based on any fact, we cannot sit back and say, you're entitled to your opinion. Hatred and lies go together. We have to fight both of them with every fiber in our being. Those who know me that I often come back to the words of Rabbi Hillel, those three questions which mean so much to every generation who will hear them. If I am not for myself, then who will be for me? But if I'm only for myself, then what am I? And if not now, when? Being for ourselves and knowing that others will only come to our help when we follow that obligation is a sign of health, of life, of political and personal will and determination. But you know, that has to be joined and bound together with a commitment to others who also face hatred, who face insecurity, and face discrimination. And there's also the commandment to act, for it is by our deeds and not our words that we make a difference. In creating this remarkable exhibit, a living reminder of the railway cars that took millions to their death, we are in fact showing our faith in ourselves, our faith in our future, our faith in our common humanity, and our commitment to life itself. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you. Take good care.
Okay. We will now be having a glass breaking ceremony. There's a tradition at Jewish weddings that we break a glass to remember the destruction of the past in order to move forward. Breaking a glass is a symbol of remembrance of the shattered pieces, families, and lives of the past, as well as a symbol of hope, of looking forward to rebuilding and spreading light and celebration. The glass that we're breaking today was painted by the talented team member, Veronica. It has numbers on it to represent the numbers that were tattooed on the arms of Auschwitz prisoners. Jordana and Sagi Kahan Rappaport, who I'm going to introduce in a minute, will break the glass, and visitors are going to have the opportunity to reassemble and glue these broken shards into an art piece that's on display here, to fill in the blank spaces that you see in order to create the word light. We're breaking the glass to symbolize opening up a new frontier of Holocaust education for future generations. Before we do that, I'd like to introduce Sagi Kahan Rappaport to say a few words. Sagi is the creative director of Shadowlight. Hold on a second, paper. It's important to know that Sagi was the very first person whom Jordana approached with her ideas about this project, and Sagi signed on in a heartbeat. He's been solving complex problems every day since then, including today with the microphone going from virtual to live. This exhibit would not be here without Sagi's vision, innovation, and sheer brilliance. Please join me in acknowledging Sagi and welcome him to say a few words before they break the glass.
Hi, everyone. Sagi, thank you so much for being here and supporting this project. I think, so many incredible words have been said. So I'll keep it short and add that, for me and for everyone working on this project, it's been an incredible honor bringing these stories to life and helping pass them on to the future generations. It's been the most complex project I have ever worked on by far. On a personal level, dealing with this content, every single day, working at my computer, trying to give it the respect and trying to create something that, is as good as it deserves. That's, been incredibly difficult. And from a spiritual level, the weight of the memories that the survivors are passing on it's been at the top of my mind every single day I've been working on it, which I can't even count how many at this point. And from a technical level, it's been a project where I've learned so much, been challenged so much, putting it together, designing it, thinking about it mentally, and then finally seeing it on the walls. And there are so many people who help us do this together. My family, my father, my grandfather, and I, who literally installed the projections, my family who's acting for me, supporting me in every way, the donors, everyone here today who's been so incredibly supportive, and of course Jordana, who trusted me enough when I said, let's make this way more complicated than it ever had any right to be, and whose vision and leadership and drive has kept this project going and alive. Every single day there was another problem, there was another setback, there was another step where we said, oh my God, is this gonna work? Can we do this? And every single day we said, well, we have to. We're gonna try. And we kept moving, we kept, breaking forward. We filmed the very first parts of it in 2018. It was 2019 when we filmed the continuation, and it was only maybe 2 months ago in 2020 when we even saw it on the walls of the car at all. But every single day we put our heads down and we said, we're gonna do this. And every single day it got a little bit better. And I think that's the metaphor of the car. That's the point of us being here. That's the point of it. It's that the world around us, it looks scary, it looks daunting, it looks full of hate, it looks full of injustice. And in many cases it is. But together, through initiatives like this, through many other initiatives around the world, we can put our heads down, we can look around us and say, hey, we can do better. And every next day, it will be a little better. So I'm very grateful to have had this opportunity to put my small part in making this world a little bit better. And I hope that together we can share this project and continue that journey and that mission together. Thank you.
Very well said. Dylan is behind the camera, so Dylan's going to come over here now for those who are watching virtually for this glass breaking ceremony. Jordana is showing everyone what it says. Thank you. Are you going to break a little or no? Okay, sure. Okay, and now for all of those who are watching virtually, and for all of those who are here and haven't had an opportunity to come inside, this is the main attraction. So I'm going to actually take all of those who are watching virtually inside. Going up the steps here, and you'll see this in the video, but when you're watching the video inside, you have to imagine what it was like for those who were being, it's hard to talk about, but for those who were gathered to get onto this cattle car, they had no idea where they were going. They had no idea what their future would hold. They were told lies. They weren't sure what their journey was going to be about, but they came on here with very few possessions, and this was probably in some cases the last time they spent together with their family. So we'll take you up the steps of the cattle car, and we're about to open it up. Again, this is a replica. As Jordana told you, this was actually used for movie sets before, but it gives you an idea of what it's like to actually be inside. Can you guys see me here because it's a bit dark? So I want you to take notice of being inside of here. It's a very small space. When you step inside, when you come to do this, you'll actually see that it's not very big. So imagine hundreds of people being inside of here. This is not meant for humans. As we said, this was meant to transport animals. Hundreds of people were inside of here on a journey. They had no idea where they were going. If you take a look at the floor, you can actually see there's shoes painted on the floor. They represent men, women, children. Each shoe print was produced with a vision of the people who were crowded into these cattle cars. Jammed together, as I said, hundreds of people at a time, no food, no toilets. The stench was awful. They were in here for days. And again, they had no idea where they were going. Dark, damp, cold. Imagine the fear. Imagine what they were thinking. They were desperate to stay with their family members, to protect one another no matter what. So inside of this, when the exhibit is actually going on, I was very grateful to be part of. They had a launch a few weeks ago where they brought people inside, and I was able to see this incredible exhibit. So they have this projection on the screens, which is a 3D video all the way around you. And you met Hetty before. Hetty tells her story of coming in here, and she tells the story of that final journey to Auschwitz. We're going to show you a clip right now to give you an idea of what you're going to see when you come inside the cattle car. Sorry. It's coming. I didn't see this. He's just setting it up. So again, and the mayor's here. I mean, you haven't seen the actual projection yet, but you will. But what does it feel like for you standing inside of here right now?
Well, thanks to your vivid description. I mean, you know, you can't, and the footprints help a lot. You can see the people right here jammed in, I mean, and they were in unspeakable conditions on top of the fact that people were crowded. It is a cattle car. It's a cattle car they put in, and they didn't know. I'm sure there was a huge sense of fear that added to everything else, you know, as to where they were going. And so I think even just walking in the cattle car before you even see the video is going to be an extraordinary experience that they should have. And just seeing these footprints, it's like the stars at the Shem Holocaust Museum in Israel, where you see all the stars representing all the people who died. It creates a very powerful image, like just to see these footprints on the floor.
It really is one thing to hear the stories and to imagine it, but it is another thing to really be inside of what was a part of history and to imagine what it was like for everyone who was inside of here. So, you know, as the mayor said, nothing can really be replaced by being inside here and actually imagining what it was like. And as you're watching this video and Hetty is describing, you know, this horrific journey, as I said, I mean, there's no space here for hundreds of people. And there were generally more than that. So it was an awful, awful journey for all of those people. And really, it was just the beginning of what was an absolutely horrific time in their life. This was just the beginning of the horrors. So I think that video is ready, and we're going to show you that video right now. It's not ready? It is. No. Yeah. And again, this is just a portion of what you'll see.
I was 15 going on 5. All my life I grew up thinking the world and its people were good. We lived a life that felt safe and secure. The government propaganda kept us quiet and obedient by promising us that at worst we will be taken to the border or near the border where we would be working till the end of the war and then repatriated after the war back to our homes. We had a choice to believe the government or the rumors that were unimaginably horrible, unbelievable. My father, who was a soldier in the First World War in the Hungarian army, was so proud that he fought for his country, and he believed deeply that the Hungarian government would never abandon his Jewish citizens. And how terribly wrong he was.
Now you are here, a prisoner. No trial, no sentence. You're condemned to death just because you're Jewish. And the boxcar plays heavily
in my mind, because that's the transition from being a human being to becoming a number of which they could dispose at their own will. And we were caught and we were told that we are not allowed to take anything with us. And we marched off through the streets of Sosnowiec, Radula to Glenjean station. Train moved into the station, boxcar train, and we were forced into boxcars. This was a moment of horror. It was been along the station grounds. Members of the family may have been separated, and everybody was looking for each other, and they tried to stay as much as possible as a family. And they started shoving us into the boxcar.
I remember the loud shoutings, the rifle in a soldier's hand, and how they pushed and shoved everyone into the cattle.
We don't want to show everyone the entire thing because we want you to come and see it for yourself, but I mean, you just saw a little bit. I get teary just standing here, but it's horrifying.
Because you see these were families, and you see that they've been given various reassurances that as you walked onto a boxcar like this, how could you possibly believe that you were just being taken to the border or just being taken somewhere you could work until the war was over? And of course, these were the very people depicted here that lost their lives. And thank God we have some survivors like Dave and Hetty who can tell us that we're actually on the boxcar, because even when you see the footprints, even when you're inside and see the pictures, you can't imagine. So I hope people will come to see it, as you said, because even I've just seen 3 minutes of it and stood in here, and that standing in here before any pictures are shown from the digital display is very moving and reminds you of the horrors of what happened.
We want to give the mayor an opportunity to see the rest of it, so I'm going to step out so that you can potentially watch the rest, include everybody else can come in and watch the rest, as well as we have some media here who want to go inside and watch it. But this will wrap up our virtual version of this on the Zoom. But I do want to remind everyone, first of all, I want to thank everyone for coming here today. I want to thank the organizers, the donors, the volunteers who made this possible. This multimedia cattle car will be taken to campuses across North America, and it will provide that unique, immersive experience of connecting young people to Holocaust history. Our hope is that students will leave the cattle car with knowledge and with a sense of empowerment and strength to do something positive in their lives, moving toward the future with the past by their side. Shadowlight is still fundraising and appreciates all gifts, small and big, in order to bring this powerful exhibit as far and as wide as possible in order to make the most impact. Today is just the beginning. It is not the end. Shadowlight will be hosting its next showing in November. A link will be sent out to book a tour. They're excited to visit university campuses, including the University of Western Ontario, Waterloo, McMaster, and of course Guelph, as well as over 50 high school campuses throughout the GTA. Please visit their website, subscribe to their list, and email them about bringing the cattle car to your own organization, institution, company, or school so they can spread the impact and do something in memory of all those whose lives were cut short. Again, it is just really an incredible day here to launch this after all the years of organization and fundraising to bring this here. I'm so honored that I could be part of this today. Thank you all who tuned in online. And again, come out and visit and be a part of this for yourself. Thanks again, everyone.